And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, and as always, it is my pleasure and my delight to invite you into my world, the world of money and finance and interesting and fascinating people. Again, holding to my commitment that you need to have this information so that you can make informed decisions for yourself and for your family. And so today I'm delighted to have as my guests for the next hour two remarkable and fascinating women who are in a field that so few people know about, but yet many people are impacted by it. And that's the whole world of forensic accounting and computer forensic work. And we're going to get into all of that. What does that mean? Who is involved? And you're going to be just like I was, which is wow. But my two guests today are Terry Yoho. Her position, she is Director of Valuation Services with Flagel, Huber and Flagel and Company, which is a certified public accountants who are in the Southern Ohio marketplace. Her cohort is Michelle Warncke, and she is also involved in the area of computer forensic. So just settle down. Don't be intimidated by forensic because it's not like that at all. You're going to just be absolutely fascinated with what they do. And so I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to get right on into the interview, and I'm going to welcome these women, and we're going to have a great show. Good morning.
Good morning,
Terry.
Michelle. Thank you.
Michelle.
Good morning.
How are you all today?
Great.
I am so excited about you being here and what you guys do for a living. I shouldn't say guys because you're definitely not males, but what you do for a living. And I'd like to start with you, Terry, and that is that you are not only a CPA, but you are an ABV, an MA, a CFE, a BVAL, and a CFF. Those are serious designations. And
Yes.
can you just share with me what those designations mean and how this has impacted on your life as an accountant, or I should say a certified public accountant?
Certainly. Thank you for having us. I appreciate us being here. I started out as a CPA, Certified Public Accountant. And then as I got into the work, I wanted to do more consulting. So became a certified fraud examiner, which is what we're going to get into today, is what we really do in that arena. Some of the other designations have to do with a certified business appraiser, business valuator, and certified in financial forensics, which is very similar to a certified fraud examiner. It's just, it's education and testing and continuing education to keep you up to date on fraud and forensics.
Fascinating. And what about yourself, Michelle?
I began my career in traditional IT, and I'm still the IT manager for Flagel, Huber Flagel, but I started into computer forensics about 12 years ago.
12 years ago. And computer forensics, what does that translate to the average layperson?
It's finding the evidence, preserving it properly so that it can be admitted into court, on any kind of digital media device, a computer, an iPad, a phone, your GPS, anything that holds data.
So your job is to dig for data on through the venue of technology.
Exactly.
Okay, using a number of different.
Fairly specialized pieces of software and tools. Yeah.
Okay, my goodness, you must be having a heyday right now.
It's fun.
I just guess it is, because I have not an understanding. I am not a savvy techno geek, although I do recognize that we're here. No question about it. We are at the point drones do not need humans to do what they're doing, but can do everything by computer technology. I think we've made a huge leap. So we'll get back to you. But let's start, Terry, with exactly what is forensic accounting?
Forensic accounting, a lot of people are familiar with accounting auditing. When your auditor comes in, takes a look at your books, makes sure that you're in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. What I do is different. Forensic accounting is like a fraud audit. I'm looking for source documents. I'm looking for the trail that would show me where the money went. I follow the cash.
Okay.
So,
I like that. I follow the cash.
Yeah, cash is king, and
yes, it is.
I follow the cash. I'm actually looking for, I look at checks, for example, because, and Mickey will expand on this, but what's in your computer system is not always accurate from an accounting perspective. For example, I've had people put in that they paid the company American Express bill, which is not unusual. Unfortunately, they weren't American Express bill, they were paying their own American Express bill. But you wouldn't know that unless you looked at the check and the backup to it, like what kind of expenses were they actually paying.
Now, I have to just pause for a minute because this prompts another question, which is, what got you in the door in that situation anyway? Was there something that prompted the comptroller of the company to be suspicious of activity? Was it earnings performance, which was like, all of a sudden? I mean, what brings you to the table?
Usually someone's suspicious.
Somebody's suspicious.
Things don't make sense. Like I had a priest tell me, bingo is just not making any money. It's like, okay, there may be an issue here.
Okay, bingo's not making any money.
You see what I mean? A lot of times it's somebody who, or they had run programs and these programs had been profitable in the past and all of a sudden they're not making money. Clues. These are clues. We call them red flags to a certain extent.
And what in your definition is a red flag? Because a corporation can have a good year, and then with this recent recession, earnings have not been good.
Right.
And corporations have been struggling. So that would be anticipated, don't you think?
I agree. What's been happening is a lot of people who commit fraud and take money from the company, they've been doing it for a long time.
Oh my goodness, like how long is long?
Oh, it can be over 10 years. A lot of times it's people who have been there for 10 years or more.
And have stolen.
That's right, because they're trusted employees. So
that's an oxymoron.
It is. It is. I had one guy who was a dentist, and dentists tend to be targets because they pay attention to their patients and let the bookkeeper handle everything else, which means I gave her all the control over the cash.
Okay.
Mistake number one.
Internal. He had his own internal bookkeeper. Okay.
Yes. And he goes, I had her babysit my kids. I said, well, you better check the house.
Yes. Look for the gold.
It's sad. But it's true.
And what is your perspective? Because you work with her.
I do. A lot of times what I'm doing specifically to help Terry is to help her find those second set of QuickBooks records, those second
double
set
books?
Of double books.
They really do double
books.
Absolutely. That's not a mystery novel.
Books. No, they do double books.
They do double books.
They write themselves notes in Excel spreadsheets and then say rename the Excel spreadsheet so that it looks like a system file, so that if you were just looking through for spreadsheets you wouldn't see it. I can find that kind of stuff for unlock password protected stuff.
Is it true that you can truly unlock?
Some of it. Yeah.
Some of it?
Quite a bit of it.
Quite a bit of it. Okay.
Depending on how much time I have. Yeah, get into some password protected. We found double sets of QuickBooks password protected, and the second set had the really good stuff in it.
Which showed how much the person was taking.
Yeah.
They track how much they're stealing.
They have to keep some sort of records to where they can file their taxes and pay their sales tax and that sort of thing that aren't totally out of whack, but they usually have the set of books that they show the owners and then the set of real books. They kind of have to keep track of what they're doing.
And the owner never ever suspects?
Sometimes they do. A lot of times it's I worked one and it wasn't even terribly sophisticated. His bookkeeper had been stealing from him for between 5 and 6 years. She'd stolen over $5 million.
She had stolen $5 million.
Yes,
Was that her retirement plan?
She gambled.
She was an addict.
She bought her husband a fishing boat. She was paying her daycare bills with the corporate checks. And she would have gotten caught much sooner if he'd have done just the simple thing of opening his own bank reconciliation bank statement when it got to him.
But she did that.
Because she was the bookkeeper.
Exactly. Because how many I'm going to be candid with you. My mother, who was an IRS auditor until I persuaded her to work for me in the 80s, I couldn't have told you anything. I told folks I signed the checks, and don't bother me because I'm running a company. But your mother's not going to ditch you. Obviously, she ran a tight ship, and in fact, the CPAs that did audit said they always went to her for clarification because she kept tight books. But I don't know if a lot of business owners have the time to do this type of work. I mean, what would you recommend?
Well, as Mickey said, there are a few things as an owner that you need to do.
Okay.
I know they're very busy doing business,
yes,
creating business,
right.
Clients, what
Trying
have
to
you.
stay in business.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they really do need to protect their funds. Something as simple as getting a bank statement with copies of the checks on it.
Okay.
And every now and then, look at it. Usually in vacation months, June, July, August.
Like now.
Yes, because I'm stealing money and I need extra money for vacation. So it'll show up in summer months and also around Christmas time.
And are these checks written to them personally, or are these checks written to a third party or someone else? What do you find?
A variety.
Both.
Variety.
Yeah.
Oh, people do actually write themselves checks.
Write them, something that can paper trail that quickly?
You know, it seems silly, but yes, they do. They write themselves checks and put that in their account.
Okay.
No
now,
one said they were, very
I'm
bright
talking-
individuals.
But yet, as Mickey said, $5 million?
$5 million. They were going to shut down an entire product line. They thought it was unprofitable.
Because she has stolen $5 million.
And they caught her when she went on vacation.
She
had
vacation.
Yeah. And they do. You'll find a lot of these employees that do this are reluctant to take time off, or reluctant to take big blocks of time off.
Employee.
Exactly. Well, things fall apart when you're not there.
Yeah.
She had been using. Every time they hired a salesman, they issued the salesman a credit card for his travel and his expenses. And if the salesman left, then she was supposed to cancel the credit card. Well, she wasn't. She was using all those credit cards for her own purposes. And while she was on, she forgot to pay one. And when she was on vacation, the bank called
about
why this salesman's credit card hadn't been paid. Then the owner's like, that salesman doesn't work here, that account's closed. And the bank's like, no.
No, it's very active.
So it all blew up on her while she was on vacation.
Oh my goodness gracious. And may I ask you, and the end of the story is?
She went to jail.
She went to jail for theft.
And that's the other thing, is a lot of these small business owners don't prosecute.
No.
And
that is a problem.
And the reason they don't?
It's a fear. They're afraid that it'll show their clients that they haven't been keeping an eye on things, or that they're sloppy, or that it'll get out and somehow ruin their client base. But unfortunately, we have had more than one occasion where someone stole from someone who did not prosecute. And they just went on to steal from another person.
So they terminated their employment, and
Correct.
the person left unscathed.
That's right. And was hired by another company who she stole from, who we looked at and found.
Same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
And did they let her swan dance?
They actually prosecuted. Because when we come in, we look for evidence. So we're building a case. Another item for owners to have is make sure you have insurance.
What type of insurance?
Fraud insurance.
Okay.
Definitely, because frauds, according to the national statistics, 85% of businesses have fraud.
85% have, we're not talking about a retail company where their people are stealing inventory. We're talking about a business that has accountants and bookkeepers that are cooking the books.
That's right.
Ah,
It's
85%. Terry, it makes me not want to grow.
Well, yes and no. It's like
Okay.
anything else. You put out a product that's quality,
Yes.
so make sure that your internal controls are quality.
Now, do you do that? Do you go in and set up systems so that companies will not find themselves literally dog paddling to keep themselves afloat?
Yeah, we do.
You do?
We
Okay.
do what we call a forensic audit, and it can be a quick forensic audit, and that's just looking at your controls and offering suggestions for change
Okay.
to make them tighter.
So you talked about two. So are there other things to make?
There are other things.
There are.
Well, Mickey just alluded to one. Make sure any old credit cards have been canceled. That's personal as well as business, because personal fraud, that they use that too.
Huh. So a thief will be working in a company and use a personal credit card?
Well, they could.
They could. Okay.
You see, opportunity is one of the keys here.
Okay.
If a person has opportunity, that's step one in the fraud. We're trying to limit their opportunity to commit fraud. That's a key element. You know, if they have an attitude that's an acceptance, for example, I've been here for 10 years, I didn't get a raise for the last 2, they owe me.
Oh, okay.
They owe me the money, I'll pay it back.
How can you?
That's right, you can't.
You can't. Once you've done that, the mark is there. You can't really restore. Can you, Mickey?
They always say they will, they never do.
They never do.
They never
try to make restitution. If they're prosecuted, sometimes restitution is a component of that.
I think it would be hard for somebody to come up with some of the amounts we've seen stolen.
Well, that's true, because it's over time.
Ah, but I'm thinking about the lady on 5 million. That's $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, tax free. So that really is $1 million a year. And she did not accumulate any funds for a rainy day.
Not that we could find.
Oh my God. That's kind of like winning the lotto and being penniless. I mean, really, literally.
absolutely.
I mean, we hear those all the time, and I'm always amazed at how can a person be penniless after winning, $10 million? How can you be penniless in 5 years? And I guess the money just goes.
They don't think it's going to end.
Right. They don't think
They don't think it's going to end. They don't think they're going to get caught. They don't think the money trail is going to end. They just don't think that far ahead.
My goodness. Now, are these all women, men, or does it matter in terms of...
Both.
Now, are the larger amounts from, is there any male, female in terms of the big chunks? Is that a male piece and the smaller chunks a female piece, or does it matter?
I've seen it both ways. We began an investigation on a university where one of the university directors was writing grant proposals.
Okay.
And getting grant money.
Okay.
To do various research, and then
that's fairly typical.
And then using the grant money to remodel his house.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So but that case got turned over to the FBI because it got big to the point where they had to step in.
That much money?
Yeah.
Oh no. Not pretty.
Not pretty
at all.
And what did he? When these people come wanting their research, the end results of their research that hadn't been done.
He had not done any of the work.
No, because he had spent the money.
He had spent the money. So he had to know there was an end to this, right?
You would think he would know he was going to get caught eventually, unless
These people mentally ill?
I think it's just society sometimes. There's usually a stressor, a financial stressor.
Okay.
My kids are starting college.
Yeah,
How am I going to pay for that?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just start borrowing money, so to speak, from the company, skimming. Or My husband had an accident.
Okay.
And our income went down. Well, I've got to supplement that. Or flat out, the neighbor's got a brand new car, I need one. Sometimes it's just, I need one. Because we're in that instant gratification society.
That is absolutely bizarre. When we talked about this before, and I kind of put it on my, I need to revisit this. We talked about this years ago, and I was looking at her kind of oddly, like, you do what? And then it was like, is it that much going on? And apparently so.
Unfortunately, yes.
I mean, yes. How many people would you guess do this kind of work nationally?
You know, it's
Specialized work.
expanded. It's definitely grown, don't you think?
Okay, from when you started.
Oh, definitely. I think that there's probably, you know, I don't know, I can't make a guess, but there's probably in every accounting firm, major accounting firm, there are probably definitely people just like us
That do this
looking
kind of
into
work.
forensic accounting. And there's firms that just do forensic accounting.
Really, just specialty firms
Correct.
that do nothing but that throughout the
It's-
United States.
Oh, definitely. The nice thing about having fraud insurance from a company perspective is we compile the evidence, we show how much they took, and then the insurance company will pay you.
Oh, now that's nice.
Yes, definitely a plus, because the next step is to go after the person who stole the money, which you may or may not see any money or $10 a week type of thing, which is more aggravation usually for the person they stole from, because it's just a reminder
Yeah.
that you took the money and I didn't catch you until later.
So in a situation where you have fraud insurance, however, the insurance company would probably be proactively involved because they've had to pay out money.
That's correct.
So they have a fleet of attorneys who would go after this person and even prosecute without the same emotional issues perhaps a business owner would have.
That definitely has potential there, yes.
Yeah, I was
because
just thinking
the person paying restitution would have to pay it to the insurance company.
Exactly.
That's
the only
correct.
reason I bring that up is when you have liability insurance with your home and the large coverage, like $10 million, and at the point the insurance company has to do the payout, everything changes.
Yeah.
Everything changes because they are vested in that outcome. So fraud insurance is a must for all businesses, you would say.
Oh, definitely.
It doesn't matter if you've got more than one employee on up, or does it matter the number of employees?
No, it doesn't. I mean, we've had fraud in the churches. I mean, it can
Fraud
be anyone.
in the church?
Yes.
I think that happens more often than you'd think.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Definitely.
Because it's cash?
I think a lot of it's because it's cash and because there are no internal controls. You're trusting one person to take care of counting your money and depositing your money and then reconciling your bank account and doing all your banking, because churches are generally small volunteer organizations.
They are small for the most part, and they are totally volunteer.
And there are some simple things they can do to help them avoid getting ripped off.
Tell me.
Have more than one person count the cash collection.
Okay.
And when they do, write it down in pen, 2 copies.
2 copies.
One goes to the bookkeeper who, if she's stealing, she'll change the numbers. But the other copy goes right to the finance director person, whoever is going to check on the finances on a monthly basis. Because at least they'll know how much money should have gotten to the bank.
And then they can reconcile their documents with the bank account information, unless the bookkeeper gets the bank statement.
Another issue.
Okay.
And we've had bookkeepers change the address to their home address. So again, here we go back to take a look at these bank statements and make sure they have the checks on them. We had a bookkeeper say, oh, it's too expensive to get the copies of the checks on the bank statement. The expense is worth it, so you can see who those checks are really written to.
I was thinking
and who's really signing them?
and
That's true too.
Now
We've
talk
had people
about that.
forge it.
Okay. Signed signatures? Go on.
The embezzlement case I was talking about, she wasn't even attempting to hide the fact that she was signing checks. She was signing her name.
She signed her. Was she an authorized signer?
No, she was not.
And yet the check cleared
Yes,
the bank?
yes.
So who was liable here? Because if you're not an authorized signer,
The bank should have caught it,
You-
or at least they should have caught it sooner.
yeah.
But the bank will not help you. Keep that in mind. The bank's not there to check every check or every signature.
They're there to process money.
That's right.
And you have to have your own internal controls for that.
Yes. Now, I understand the bank has some additional controls they've put in place. That, for example, you can tell them exactly, here's the list of checks I'm paying, and only those checks get paid out of your account.
Who can do that?
Some of these banks, again, I don't know specifically which one,
understand.
but I do know that it's available. Again, it's an extra fee. That's up to the person, but
If
I
a
knew they have
church
that.
can, I mean, that is absolutely dreadful to know that one of your trusted inner circle is signing their name to checks and taking the money. But I just wondered if a lot of that had to do with the fact that so many people don't write checks. They just give cash. I mean, I do.
Churches specifically, I think, have a cash problem.
Yeah, they
or
do. Yeah.
online bill paying. What have you seen in that?
I really haven't seen too much fraud in online bill pay.
Really?
Other than people setting up, getting a phishing email and setting up a payer that they think is, TJ Maxx, and it's really
Them.
somebody in Russia, where they're or
Oh.
Yugoslavia or something, where they've sent them a scam email saying, here, set up your online bank account and click here, and they do that, and here's your account number, and yeah.
Speaking of which, what is going on in that arena? Because this whole issue of money that disappears, literally, and I know your specialty is forensic as it pertains to companies and nonprofits, but I'm thinking about the billions of dollars that are leaving American consumers who do internet transactions. And you can't seem to stop it. I don't understand how that works. Maybe you can explain that to me.
There's so much phony stuff, for want of a better term, going on the internet. Scammy stuff.
Scammy stuff. Scratch.
You accidentally click on a button, and then you have this warning that you have a virus, and if you don't pay us $19.95, your computer's going to be useless. Well, it's not usually really a virus. It's what they call scareware, and they want you to pay them the $19.95.
Or else
you give the computer to somebody like me, and we just fix it. But there's, I know of a woman who sent money overseas to basically one of these Nigerian prince, I'm going to send you gold, you send me money stories. And she was elderly.
Oh, God.
She fell for this, and nobody could convince her to stop. I think her bankers finally had an attorney involved to have her declared to where she couldn't have access to her money, because she was sending money overseas for gold she was never going to see.
This is so, what I find very scary to me, because in the practice that I have in terms of working with seniors, is so many of them have Alzheimer's. And it may be undiagnosed, but yet and still, the way that system seems to work, once you get on a list as a sucker,
absolutely,
then everybody else zooms in on that individual. And they start writing checks, they start doing it. I mean, it just never ends. And so with your expertise, what steps would you recommend for personal forensic protection?
Good antivirus.
Good antivirus. Any companies? Because everybody says they're good.
Now, most of them will at least do the job.
Okay.
There's an anti-malware piece of software called Malwarebytes that works really well.
Yeah, I have that on mine.
And then the most important thing is just to be really careful what you click on in an email.
So should you have your filter tight?
I would, especially depending on the user's tech savvy level. You know, I've got my parents trained. They don't click on a link in an email unless they call me first. But I can't.
Well, what about going with Facebook when people are putting on links? Don't do that. Go straight to the source?
Exactly.
Okay, rather than...
Yeah. If I get an email that says it's from my bank and you have a message in your secure area, I don't click, even though I'm 99.9% sure it's from my bank. I go to my bank's website, log in, and then look for my messages in my secure area. I don't ever click on the links.
So you go to the source.
Go to the source.
You don't go through the links.
Right.
That's good information. And for seniors that are in the world of computers, would you say do not open up anything that you do not recognize?
Even that doesn't work. Sometimes if their friend gets a virus and then that virus sends out an email, and then it looks like it comes from your friend. We get that. We even get that a lot where they come in the office. But
really,
luckily, they'll all call and say, I don't know why this person would be sending me a link to whatever it is that looks odd. And so they don't click on it. They call and say, can you come look at this? But there's also the scam going around, and it usually comes from one of your friends. I'm stuck in Spain. I was mugged.
That
and
happened
had
to
my
me
passport taken.
in England. A friend of, I was involved in Rotary at that time, and one of our Rotarians, we got a panic notice, all of us, that he was stranded in London, and this happened and that happened. And I just had a gut feeling it didn't feel right. It's possible because international stuff does happen.
Sure.
But it didn't feel right, and it turned out that he hadn't left his home. This was all a scam. And I think one gentleman did respond.
And send him money.
Yes. And I don't know what that meant, the fact that he responded. Somebody got a check that day. Somebody got cash, and off we go. Do you think this is going to be an increasing issue?
Yes.
Because I see with technology, I see good, but I see an awful lot of things that are just surreal.
I think it's going to increase. I do. I think they continually find new and better ways to scam your money out of you.
That is so amazing. And we're still considered, the United States is still considered the money pot, which is if you want to pluck, that's where you need to pluck. And you've got these geeks all over the world. I mean, in all these odd-sounding countries that are very, very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart. So shifting back to you, Terry, typically you get a call in. Let's look at a normal step-by-step. You get a call in from a client, or do they have to be a client of the firm, or can they just be someone who, like watching the show today and say, you know what, I think she's talking about me.
It could be.
It could be. And so they can call you.
Correct.
And then what is your next step?
We would meet and then go over what their suspicions are. Especially, who do you think's stealing? What have you done so far? You have to be careful what you do with the person you think's stealing. And Mickey's good at this as well, is you have to watch how you handle the situation so that if you do end up going to court or giving it to the prosecutor, that the information is valid and secure.
Okay.
Because that can be an issue down the line.
Okay.
Especially with the way the legal system is, and attorneys are very smart on, if you didn't follow X, Y, and Z, then we should throw this out type of thing. So we talk to them, and sometimes by the time I get in, they've already let the person go.
Oh, really?
That's not unusual.
So it's an ex post facto type of situation.
Right.
Okay.
So in that case, if the person's already gone, it's actually very simplified, because I can go in at any time, look through all the documents, and follow the trail and see how much money they've stolen. Because that's really why they want me there, is how much have they taken.
Okay.
They've already decided they've taken money, or they've caught them taking money. Whether they changed a deposit ticket and didn't deposit all the cash, or they saw an invoice that was paid and they got a call from the person and they said, you didn't pay this, and it says our record said we did. When they pulled the document, found out it was a personal expense they had paid. So usually, or a lot of times, by the time I get in, they know someone stole money. It's just how much did they steal. So it's at that level. Sometimes in divorce cases.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because that is, I know it's a touchy subject, but it's real today.
Oh, definitely.
So,
well, we have variety for the divorce arena. We have everything from people hiding money from their spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse, and if they didn't declare it, they could have moved money into different accounts or just not declared accounts. I've had people buy houses under the person they were fooling around with's name. So it can be almost anything. And
so
you're
they
looking
took
for
cash
clues.
and passed it through the other person.
Correct.
Who bought the house in
their name.
In their name. Now that would show up in title, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
So you can follow the money, because that takes a lot of money. So if you can see where the money goes and see, well, what happened to this, eventually it's going to hit a bank account to go to the bank to pay for the money.
Okay.
So it's, again, following the cash, following the trail. Or I've had people who put money in different bank accounts and didn't declare them at divorce, time of divorce.
Yes, right.
And then after the fact, had the ex-spouse hire me to say, I know he had money. When the divorce is done, if you can find the money, then it's all hers.
Right.
I mean, it's no longer 50-50.
Oh, it is not. If there's fraud involved, the court says it's all hers or his.
It can. I'm not an attorney.
No,
but
I know that.
A lot of times that's exactly what they do.
That's fair.
It is fair because you
were
were supposed to
you're
declare
breaking
it.
law.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't get grace. This isn't the church.
You understand.
Yeah. So they will do that. And same thing with assets, other assets, because you can use money to buy gold.
That's correct.
And other commodities.
I've had dentists do that. They actually bought cougarans, which is illegal, but
right.
Yeah, instead of gold fillings.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
That was different. I got to admit, that was creative. So
That's
now
very creative. So he's got a mouthful of Krugerrands?
Yeah, could you see that?
I just can't believe that. I mean, come on. Just give the woman the money.
Seriously.
Get over it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's over.
It's true.
Make it right. Do what's right.
That
is amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things? If they have a corporation, do they try to retain earnings so that they don't have to show or have the corporation have assets that were undistributed?
Choices. Like you said, sometimes they won't make any distributions, so they won't distribute the cash out.
Okay.
But that shows up on the balance sheet, so they can't get away with that too easily.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think in my head.
But they do expense a lot of personal expenses through the company, a lot of times in cost of goods sold.
They flush it into the actual product.
Correct, because it's a big number and hard to track.
Wow, cost of goods sold. That's ingenious. So you mark up that product, sell it into the market, and who's to say?
That's right, because your net income's low.
Exactly.
So you're not splitting that with the spouse.
So, but your bank account at the end of the year, at the time of reconciliation, has to show more money.
Yes and no. We've seen people buy, for example, prepaid credit cards.
Okay.
Supposedly, we bought all these credit cards, for the employee benefits. Wrote them off to employee benefits. Well, no. The owner is using Visa prepaid cards, or it could be Lowe's for all I know. But they just put the money in prepaid cards, so they expensed it. The cash is gone.
Okay, because I'm looking at the balance sheet. Yeah. Okay, so the cash is gone. Shows on the balance sheet as
prepaid cards.
Duh.
So you see what I mean?
$1 million in prepaid cards.
Correct.
All this maneuvering just because.
True.
Okay. So what is the most outrageous act that you've seen in the area of divorce?
I saw a person claim that they had, it's one of those things, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Wall Street talking.
It's true. You know, what he
It
did was
is.
he was taking so much money, not reporting it at all on his...
To the IRS.
Right, to the
Okay,
IRS.
dumb.
So he wasn't reporting it to the IRS. He was, any cash, he just kept it totally off the revenue, but reported all his expenses, which means he made no money, right?
Exactly.
Well, the problem was he was paying child support, and he recorded his tax return was so low that he couldn't even justify any money to pay child support.
Oh.
Talk about a red flag.
Really?
Yeah, so how are you paying this woman child support when you can't even pay yourself a dime based on your reported income?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Did he have an accountant when he was cooking his books?
He did.
He did, and that person did not advise him that there was some type of a oddity occurring here where you can pay out child support but you don't have enough income to
No.
take care of yourself?
Apparently not.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's dumb.
he was dumb.
Gosh. Got a good story for me, Mickey?
Oh, some of them you have to filter them so that nobody can figure out who you're talking about. Probably the most outrageous divorce I had didn't involve money. It was just harassment.
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 Him or her?
Him harassing her, even though he had already gotten remarried.
He couldn't let go.
He couldn't let go.
Mother dropped him on his head.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, as a child. Yeah.
He had sent her an email requesting copies of family videos.
That was not a part of the divorce?
Right.
Okay.
And she gave them to him.
Okay,
She
she's
made the
nice.
copies.
Okay,
She
she
gave
made
him the
copies.
copies.
Okay, this is good. This is good.
So he then takes her to court saying he had requested this number and she had only produced this number. And here's the email that proves that I asked for this number. Well, his email was a printout on a piece of paper. I can type up a piece of paper and say anything I want.
Exactly.
So I looked at her computer and I could find the email, and the email clearly said the number she had produced and not the number.
He took her to court and the court accepted that?
No, it got
Pitched.
once I testified, he changed his tune real quick.
Gosh, I'm surprised.
But he was just harassing her
For what?
because he could.
Because he could. Well, I'm glad that the court was reasonable because in my thinking, once you're divorced, all things are settled. Except, as I said, in the event of intentional fraud where he didn't report bank accounts and other assets, and then, what do you know, goes to the ex-wife because you're stupid, okay? But in a situation like that where she actually had to come to and pay, obviously you don't work pro bono, but she paid to defend herself against a false charge, it's very sad.
It is.
That is very, very sad. So as you move forward, we're talking about the divorces, so you do that type of work as well.
Correct.
In terms of digging,
Correct.
etc.
We've had some estates as well.
I was going to ask you about estates. How does that work? Because can the dead talk from the grave?
If you can find the source documents, they can. Yeah, depending on the individuals involved. Yes, and unfortunately, that happens more than you think.
I'm surprised. Give me a situation so I can put some meat to this.
We had one that was it was a farmer,
Okay.
and he actually collected these special bikes. I want to say mini bikes because I don't actually ride a mini bike, but to me they look like mini bikes called Indian somethings. But they were old bikes and parts.
Okay.
And they were in the barn. Well, one of the kids knew about them and knew exactly what they wanted and how much they were worth. And two of the other kids really weren't involved in any of that. It was kind of like, I think the boy in the family knew where the mini bikes were and the parts and what they were worth. And the two girls in the family really weren't involved in any of that.
Okay.
And had moved on or, had their own families. Well, when it came time for the estate to be settled, all of a sudden they went out there and all of the mini bikes were missing.
Aha.
Now, from an
The
estate
plot thickens.
yes, from an estate perspective, one of the girls was the
Executrix.
right.
Yeah, okay.
So now she's responsible.
Right, for the accounting.
That's right, and we've got a big problem because apparently there was a family friend who knew exactly what was out there as well
Aha.
that could help her. So yes and no, as far as, like you said, talking from the grave, as long as you have different friends, family members involved, then it becomes an issue. And sure enough, they finally did come clean that they had taken them, and they were worth over $1 million.
What?
The family had never been, you would never know the family had 2 nickels to rub together. He spent all his money on these bikes.
And the bikes were worth that?
Over $1 million.
So did the son, I'm making an assumption here, that the son was able to find a buyer or take it into the market and have
Auctioneer.
the auctioneer.
Exactly, and put values on them. And what ended up happening was the son actually was more selective in his choices then, so that there was enough cash from the sale of the other bikes to split among the other parties.
So his intent was honorable. He just didn't follow the procedures for probating.
I don't know if he would have said anything if
I
someone
just-
hadn't come forward.
And said, what is going on
Right.
here?
What happened to these?
Okay.
Right.
So in a situation like that, you were able to track that because you had another outsider
Correct.
who was willing to come forward and say, you know, this did happen.
That's right. And we had to do a site visit. And once you did the site visit at the brother's house and storage unit, oh my. Then it all came to light. And some of the neighbors said, yeah, I saw him come in and take those out of here. You know, that type of thing. Once you start talking to people around.
Oh yeah, because everybody sees everything. There's
You'd
no
be surprised,
secrets.
huh?
There's no secrets in the house. Not
That's
today.
right. That's
That
right.
is very, and are there any other situations that you can think of in the whole estate? Because estate work and settling is very important.
Well, not only if somebody took something, but if you do end up with an estate where you have no clue what financial information is,
Right.
where mom hid the money or put the money, or and it happens a lot.
Well, yes, because people as they get older, hoarding.
Yes, they do.
That's a part of aging, is hoarding and being fearful of being hungry. And they
Yes, and-
hide things.
You're absolutely right. And we have gone through their documents, and also you can do searches online for different accounts and that, and have found additional money for people for an
Really?
estate. Yes.
Has it ever been a situation where they've opened up accounts outside of the United States? We're maybe talking about more affluent individuals, and they've opened up accounts and then they've died.
We
The
have,
family vaguely knows there's money missing, but they don't know where or who or anything like that.
that's a lot more complicated because of international issues. I have one that's a divorce right now that we actually finally got documents. It's been a year and a half.
A year and a half.
We have finally got documents from Switzerland.
I was
Yeah?
going to say Switzerland. Goodness gracious.
It
They
is-
don't talk, they don't
no.
tell.
It has taken a year and a half. I think they think that you're going to give up, and some people do.
Uh-huh.
But we were persistent, and we have $250,000 in an account over there.
That the husband set up.
That's correct.
What was that about? You make a request, you show them the documents that there is a divorce in process and they need an accounting. And the Swiss say it's not our problem.
Basically. Then it's kind of like the squeaky wheel approach. You just keep talking to them. You send them pieces that you have. You send them evidence that you have, and they finally cough up the information.
My goodness
But
gracious.
it's a process.
Now, did the spouse, the husband, ever voluntarily give this information, or did she have to go digging?
She had to go digging.
Good for her. Glad to hear that.
It was another one of those cases where I know we had money. I couldn't find it. We got divorced, and it's after the fact.
So that all goes to her.
That's right.
Oh, there is justice.
That's right.
That is good. That
It
is
is
very,
good.
very good. In situations like that, are you seeing more and more that happening with people trying to hide assets in protected countries like Switzerland?
Yes. Definitely. Because it's so hard to get the information. Now, again, if you're dealing with the government, the FBI or whoever, I'm sure they can have other
I don't
sources.
know.
You know. But
Do they, Mickey?
They do.
They do?
They do have other sources. A lot of my peer group are in computer forensics are law enforcement.
Really?
Dayton actually has a large computer forensic crime lab.
Really? In Dayton?
And they work with the FBI, and they're great guys.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of the people that do computer forensic work are law enforcement.
And is this something that they just fell into, or they actually went to school to learn?
They've gone to school to learn for the most part. It's really become necessary in law enforcement to have access to information on computers and tablets and cell phones. You know, some of these people, I mean, they shoot somebody and they take a picture of it and it's on their cell phone. And, you know, where you can track via the GPS in their car where their car has been, and it was, you know, at this place at this time where this crime was committed. So yeah, it's crucial for their work.
I have to, because time is wrapping up. I told you it goes fast. We're almost done. This is something that has truly begun to bother me, and I feel especially vulnerable, because is it true that emails never disappear?
Pretty much.
Goodness gracious. Is it true that phone calls never disappear?
Pretty much.
Ah,
I mean, we all know what our phone carrier says they store, but I don't know what they really store. I mean, and it's always recoverable off of your phone, and it's recoverable off of the phone you called. Even if you wipe your phone, sometimes
even if you wipe your phone, it's still there.
They still know that you usually made a call to this number at this time.
Would they know the content necessarily of the
Not
conversation?
necessarily the
But they do
content.
know that the call was made. My goodness gracious. As we become increasingly sophisticated, because technology is advancing in leaps and bounds, and it's the ability to have the most recent and current technology, it seems to be where your industry is right now. Old technology is worthless. They're looking at new and better and broader technology. And so with that going on today, how does a person protect themselves?
You do have to be really careful. One of the things that I always like to tell the kids, the younger kids, who send the pictures to the new boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Don't. Those pictures never go away.
They never do. I didn't even know that. They said it's no such thing. You can close out like a Facebook, and it's never really gone.
And you know, if the minute you text that picture to that boyfriend or girlfriend, and they're mad at you, and then they text it out to everybody in your senior class, that picture's out there, and you'll never get it back.
Oh.
Think not just twice, but 3 times before you send a picture that could embarrass you.
I think that's great advice. Do you have any final thoughts, Miss Yoho?
no matter how busy you are in your business, every now and then take a good look at the bank account.
Could you give us your phone number, please? For those of you that are having challenges, I'm going to give you a woman that I think a lot of. Give us your number.
I appreciate that. It's 513-774-0300, and I'm at extension 308.
And you are Director of Valuation Services for Flagel, Huber, Flagel and Company.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Fascinating. Well, this concludes today's segment of The Power of Money, where I interviewed Terry Yoho and Mickey Warncke. And these are two remarkable women. Now you know what computer forensics looks like, and so you also know about